Welcome attendees. Thank you for joining us for this panel presented by Folk Alliance International for Folk Unlocked. My name is Rosalind Dennett. I'm the Music Licensing Coordinator at the Canadian Federation of Musicians, as well as member at large on the Board of Directors at Folk Alliance International. Before we begin, let's take this moment to acknowledge that we are joined today from folks around the globe and that we recognize the necessity, importance, and complexity of land acknowledgements in the context of online organizing, creation, and collaboration. We invite you to join in acknowledging our shared responsibility to make good use of this time and for each of us to consider our roles in reconciliation, decolonization, and active allyship. I'm tuning in from Smiths Falls, Ontario, which is the traditional territory of the Algonquin people. And we hope you all participate today by sharing your thoughts and questions in the chat. And we encourage you to share your own land acknowledgement by using the tool linked in the chat as well. This panel is being recorded and will be available for viewing for the remainder of the conference once it is aired. Please welcome our moderator for this panel, Brooke Primont.
Hi, everybody. My name is Brooke Primont, and I currently am based in New York City. I work at Concord Music Publishing, running their sync division. I would love to invite you guys to, write stuff in the chats during this, and we'll be watching. The Music in Film, TV, and Ads panel is a pandemic production cycles topic, and music supervisors and sync professionals explore the role of folk music in film and television and explain how music gets licensed. In 2020, the world spent more time at home streaming entertainment, and yet production of new material was stopped for a period of time. Shoot insurance premiums skyrocketed, and box offices were closed. Ripple effects of the pandemic both stimulated and stunted content creation. Is production rebooting? How have music decisions been affected? What about budgets? Let's hear perspectives from those closest to the process. So we've got a great panel for you. I'm trying to get back to this section. I would love to go around and have everyone sort of introduce themselves. We've got a great panel here for you. So let's start with Diana.
Hey everyone, welcome. Great to be here. I work at Anthem Entertainment. It's a publishing company that has rights in some recordings and also third-party licensor. And I am a music creative out of Los Angeles.
Great. Let's go to Willa.
Hi, thanks for having me. Willa Yudell here, freelance music supervisor. I'm based out of Los Angeles and I work primarily in film and TV.
And Sophie?
Hi, I'm Sophie Urquhart. I'm from London, UK. I've been a music supervisor for about 16 years. 9 years ago, I set up Tin Drum, which is an independent music supervision company, covering everything from search to negotiation to licensing. I work predominantly in the advertising sector, but I do some film and long-form TV shows as well.
Great. And Frankie.
Hi, everyone. I'm Frankie Pine. I am an independent music supervisor in Los Angeles, and I have been doing this job for about 25 years. So I think I'm the oldest one here on the on the panel.
Well, thank you guys so much for joining us. Let's have a good discussion here. I think that the people that are going to be watching this are mostly, songwriters, musicians, managers, publishers, record labels, and the most important thing that we should cover, I think a lot of people want to know, how do I get my song synced? That's always, whenever I do panels, it's the number one question. So we can sort of talk through that a little bit. But first, I want to talk about this crazy year and how it's really affected your jobs and your day-to-day. And have you been crazy? Have you been out of work? Have you been, suffering, or have you been totally overwhelmed? I'd like to start with Diana, a little bit about that, please.
Sure, yeah. So as I mentioned, I work at Anthem Entertainment, and we are primarily a publishing company. And so for us, it is our privilege and honor to be able to work on behalf of our songwriter and our artists. So surely this has been an incredible, 2020 had been an incredibly difficult year for them. And then, for us as folks who are trying to get to like the Willas and the Sophies and the Frankies, just due to the nature of production shutting down. I will say that from like March till about summer, things were kind of scary for us. While we did have projects trickle in from supervisors across film, TV, and ads, we saw a significant dip of maybe 70, 60%. And it turns out for us that around the fall, we started to pick back up. So, given that our artists, they didn't have, the live part of their careers going on, there was obviously quite a big emphasis on sync, connecting with us, strategizing, finding ways where we could be obviously an advocate for them even more so than we have been in the past. And so that's knocking on doors, saying hi to our supervision friends, also with keeping in mind that they themselves, have been affected by this. And I will say that the current state of affairs as of the start of this year has been great. I, working on several different pitches, a lot of television actually right now, a lot of music pools. And yeah, so it's picked up for me and for our artist, and we're happy to see the uptick so far.
Yeah, I do something very similar to you in your role. And, it's fun as a sync professional, we've gotten to be able to work with some songwriters who maybe we wouldn't have had access to this particular year because they've been touring. And so, a lot of them have time in the studio. They've been doing a lot of Zoom sessions, and they're sort of coming to us, asking us, for ideas and what they should write for. And it's been fun to work with some people that we haven't been typically working with on the sync side because they've been busy touring. So that's been cool. Frankie, how's your year been?
The kind of the same as what Deanna was saying is that, everything kind of trickled around March. I had a lot of shows that were in pre-production and in the middle of production. So because of COVID, everything kind of got shut down. And once, if you were in post-production, you had a little bit more leeway because you were able to put productions, separate editors and put them in separate bays and have that kind of separation, or sending them home and doing cutting from home. But I didn't have a lot of shows that were in post-production. So once May kind of rolled around, I was completely shut down and cleaning out my closets, organizing my CDs, things like that. But then once August rolled around, things started kind of slowly picking back up. And I'm finding that starting January this year, and especially now kind of rolling into what is February and now March, there's like a slate of definitely television. The movies are definitely slower to pick up because they're not quite sure what to do with them, with the movie theater still being shut down. But anything that's streaming is definitely a very viable place to get work. So that's kind of where it's at right now. So that's it's busy. It's busy.
All right. Well, that's good. That's pretty hopeful to hear. Our TV team, specifically last week, they said they had the most briefs that they've had sent to them from music supervisors that they've had since the shutdown in TV. So that's been great. I know, pitching to ads has not slowed down during the pandemic. With lots of brands doing a COVID spot. And we are seeing that terms are going a little bit shorter with brands, but other than that, the ad world has been pretty good. Film obviously has taken a huge hit. Willa, do you want to talk about your year?
Sure, yeah. Like Frankie said, it's definitely been affected workflow-wise. Going into last year, I was in post-production on 2 projects. One was far enough along that we were able to close it out, but navigating the whole doing everything remotely, I've done about 6 remote mixes, which are not without, their difficulties and challenges. And my other project went on a long hiatus, so that was new. But we're back, and we go to mix, of course, remotely, because only 2 people can be in a room starting Monday. But it's also been interesting to see how major labels, publishers, and indie labels and publishers have kind of responded on the licensing front. Some have been, extraordinarily eager to get sync, so have been more flexible in the fee departments. And then on the flip side, exactly the opposite. Certain companies were getting a lot less sync, so I noticed higher quotes, which is tricky in the pandemic because your production costs are rising because all of the, additional steps and personnel that's required. So it's been a huge adjustment and a learning experience. But I do feel a shift, like Diana mentioned. All of my projects that were in pre-production are coming back online now. And one thing I've really noticed is that documentary has been steady kind of throughout the pandemic, as the productions are smaller and kind of easier to navigate that landscape.
Got it. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. We've definitely been approached by people saying, we don't have as big of a budget, or can you help us out? And, as a company that does work with all the production companies, we've really tried to be flexible during this time, knowing hopefully it's just temporary, and these are our clients and our relationships, and we got to all be in this together type of thing.
Yeah, I've heard of productions kind of taking money out of their music budgets to fund COVID overages. So that's been another thing that's been just a joy.
Right. And Sophie, what about you?
Quite similarly to everyone else, actually. So last year in March, the first UK lockdown, everything stopped. So all pre-planned shoots, everything in production stops, and work was deathly quiet for a good 4 months. Everyone was panicking. There are a few things trickled through in the advertising world, but obviously it was a very sort of sensitive time. People did not want to be advertised to or pitched to. It sort of felt a bit crass for brands to be pushing anything at such a sort of difficult and nerve-wracking and worrying time for people. So a few things obviously still happened. Obviously, far more people were watching television and streaming and all of that. So obviously the advertising industries jumped on that as well. But it felt as though I had a lot of briefs for nostalgic briefs, sort of harking back to better times. I also had, there was a lot of melancholy piano based, it was, let's be sensitive to people's moods at the moment. There was a lot of animation briefs, which was interesting, obviously, because live shoots were cancelled, but animation was busy last year. And again, similarly to the others, the end of last year and this year have turned the tables completely. It's very busy. There's a lot coming through. Shoots are happening again. Obviously, there's with social distancing and rules in place, but things are definitely picking up, particularly in their advertising sector. I think the difference now is the sort of mood of what is being asked for has changed now. So like I said before, it was kind of melancholy and sensitive. Now it's definitely more about hope and optimism. There's a lot of sort of lyric briefs like, we're in this together, we're going to get through this, forward facing, which is lovely, and obviously very apt for the time. There is a light at the end of this very long tunnel we've all been in, and the briefs are certainly sort of relating to that. Yeah, but yes, like the others, very busy at the moment and very positive in terms of moving forward. I think it's just going to get busier and busier. Like I said, I feel like everyone kind of needs escape and entertainment more than ever as well. So I feel like the entertainment sector of it will be just busy writing and producing at the moment. And then, yeah, advertising is never going to go away. It just has to be sensitive to the audience at the time.
Yeah, definitely. We've seen definitely a change in the themes of the briefs that have come throughout the year. You know, like you said, the beginning, melancholy, we'll learn this together, and now it's sort of we will overcome, hopeful.
Yeah.
So that sort of brings us to genres and themes and that sort of thing that work for Sync. Obviously, this panel is for the Folk Alliance. So if we can each sort of talk about how folk music can play a role in the work that you do. You know, what do you think is unique for folk and singer-songwriter acoustic roots music? And what sort of opportunities are there out there for that type of music? I know Frankie's worked a lot in this world. You want to start?
I mean, for me, I use it all the time. It's one of my favorite things just because of the lyrics and the aspect of it helping propel the story. Also, further from what you hear in the dialogue of your particular project that you're working on. So for me, it's really important, you know, utilizing this kind of music that it gives a different side of the storytelling aspect of a particular project. Not only, you know, like from doing 6 years of Nashville, utilizing the singer-songwriter type stuff, but I'm also kind of using Americana singer-songwriter music in Big Sky, which, you know, is creepy and dark, but it also is telling us, you know, the story behind the story of what you're visually seeing on screen. And that to me is very important, a part of what of what we do as music supervisors. Like, so, you know, for me in this type of music, it's the heart of the story behind the story. That's what I love about it.
Mm-hmm. I hear you. And Diana, what about from your point of view?
Yeah, you know, I will say especially lately with the shows that we've been getting briefs for, we've been seeing a lot more of a request, at least on my end, for exactly that folk music, Americana music, singer-songwriter, and badass Western country. So, you know, being Anthem, formerly Ole, being a Canadian company, you know, those are our roots. So it's nice to be able to have more platforms to be able to, you know, showcase. I will share just recently, there's a new Melissa McCarthy series coming out for Netflix, and very fortunate to be able to do a big music pool for that. And I can tell you, two of the musical directions were definitely lived in this world. So it was a great opportunity to, you know, again, go to the great songwriters that we have catalog, and then one particular band in the East Pointers that actually I met through some folks in Folk Alliance that I work with. So it's, you know, it's awesome.
Very cool. Sophie, Willa, anything to add?
Sure. I mean, it's a very popular and successful genre in the advertising sector. Again, I mean, you know, there's obviously a lot of subgenres that go with it, but obviously the feel good storytelling aspect of folk music works very well. Obviously, with advertising, you want to be appealing to a mass audience, so it needs to feel safe in some respects. You know, you can't go wild with your music choices. Folk music generally has a good energy and pace, but then also, you know, like you say, there can be the sort of more melancholic or sensitive elements of it as well, which can work really well. Also, it works great as an instrumental generally, so which is very common in advertising. If it's heavy with VO, then lyrics are generally taken out. But yeah, the sort of feel-good factor of it is definitely something that gets requested a lot in our music briefs.
And as far as pulling instrumentals for some of your spots, are you just stripping vocals from a track that's been sent to you, or are you actually getting somebody to compose that or a mix?
I generally request a instrumental one if I think it's something that's going to work better as that, or there might be a chorus that I want to take out but leave a verse, or vice versa, whatever. So I'll generally, people have them ready, but if they don't, then I might request a 60-second, a 30-second instrumental. Yeah, but I would always advise, if you can, to do it up front, because it's often very quick last-minute requests, so it's useful to have them available.
Yeah, that's sort of Sync 101. When, we sign someone, we have them deliver us all of their audio, and we say we need instrumentals, we need wave files, we need lyrics, because a lot of this stuff is super quick turnaround, and it could be 10 o'clock at night for me, and a music supervisor is editing something, and I need it ASAP, and I need to have it. I don't want to have to reach out to you and get you out of bed as well. And, so those are really important things. Willa, anything to add about the folk genre in particular?
Sure, yeah. I mean, folk music kind of permeates my work in all sorts of ways, and in some really kind of straightforward ways, and then in unexpected ways too, which is kind of cool. In movies you wouldn't think necessarily might have folk music. I'm always finding that there's some kind of Easter egg in there, whether it's, I'm consulting on a documentary right now that has a Woody Guthrie composition, but done by a soul artist. In a movie I worked on that was primarily a hip hop soundtrack, we had Public Enemy's He Got Game, which samples Stephen Stills, and even in Atomic Blonde, which was primarily new wave and kind of post-punk, we had a Russian folk song in there. So it kind of finds its place everywhere. And I see it in kind of enormous tentpole films that I've worked on, and my itty bitty baby documentaries. Like, there is literally a home for it everywhere. I think folk music and singer-songwriter, there's a quality to the music that is so earnest, so it really just speaks to people.
Love it. All right, so I would love to talk about how you guys source new music. What sort of ways are you finding out about songs to try to get placed in your productions? Is it music publishers, labels, managers? Are you on Spotify? What are your ways of finding new music? Let's start with Sophie this time.
It's a mix, really. I mean, I'm on all of the mail outs for the labels, publishers, managers, and yeah, Spotify, Apple Music, Google, like anywhere really. But I do have to admit that it's almost, sadly, the hardest part of my job is staying on top of everything, just because there is an overwhelming amount of music in the world anyway, and being produced daily. And now, obviously, with more accessible platforms for people, they can just be producing in their bedroom and send direct to your inbox. So, as much as it's part of the reason I got into this job is I'm passionate and love music, it's definitely a difficult part to maintain. Yeah, I mean, but also saying that, it's also part of our job to be on top of things that are coming out, and genres and styles and trends and all of that sort of thing. So I do still encourage people to send it to me. I just generally try and ask for sort of an overview of the catalogue or some highlights or something, just to give me a taster rather than the whole lot, because the reality is I won't sit through it and listen. Sadly, it's just not enough hours in the day or the week, I'm afraid.
Yeah, especially now, this revenue stream of sync is really important. And I'm sure the competition, it was always big, in the past, 15 years or so, it's been growing. And now I can't imagine you guys being overwhelmed with people. I mean, even just being, a sync department within a company we're getting, you know, hounded internally. This band's not touring. We need some syncs. We need some revenue. And what can you do? And it's a lot of stress for that reason. And I'm sure that, you know, we're trying our best and you're trying your best, and, you know, it's difficult. Willa, what about you in terms of sourcing new music and how you like music sent to you and your process?
Literally every which way. It comes to me every which way. It comes in droves via email. I find things on Instagram. You know, it's amazing where you can find music. Back in the day, I was finding random artists on MySpace, literally everywhere. You know, back in the day when concerts were a thing. You know, you go to a show and you might happen to catch the opener or the opener for the opener, and it's a discovery. I really do miss discovery via live music. I mean, it kind of just hits in a different way. But yeah, you know, I'm on everyone's blast, from majors to minors to third-party sync licensing companies to managers to the artists themselves to random singer-songwriters who found my email online. I am bombarded, and at the same time, it is a wonderful privilege and totally overwhelming.
Yeah, I can't imagine seeing your inboxes. I mean, does anyone have any sort of stories of someone getting their attention, or you know, via email or some sort of anecdote maybe about someone sort of soliciting you and getting a placement or breaking something?
I have had a few bribes, but it hasn't resulted in a sync, I have to say. And I'll take bribes.
Open to it.
I have a way to get a sync. That's what I should close that.
Some syncs have come to me not necessarily by way of email, but meeting people out in the world. You know, someone like Diana might invite me to a show on a Tuesday, and all of a sudden I'm on a mix stage and a song I thought was cleared is secretly a Joy Division cover, and I need to swap something out really quickly. And I think, oh, I was just at this amazing show this week. You know, I met the manager, reach right out to them. I love those sort of kismet experiences. And it's happened to me a lot, you know, just meeting someone in person, being affected by their music in such a way that it's in the forefront of my mind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of, you know, from our perspective, and Diana, you probably think the same, you know, it's about timing. So, you know, I'm sure some of our emails just go unread, and that's no big deal. Hopefully you'll catch it the next time around, or we'll see you out, or, you know, in normal circumstances, we're inviting everyone to shows and showcases and lunches, and we mention someone, and then later that day you're looking for something that might match. And, you know, I always say, like, we need to send out probably 200 pitches in order to land one thing, or maybe more at this point, honestly. It's a numbers game. And, you know, as far as pitching goes, you have to just be really on point. If somebody's coming to you with a brief or asking you for a suggestion of a song, you send only what works, and you send it quickly, and you know that it can clear. You get back to people quickly. You're reliable. All that stuff is so important when it comes to pitching, because they won't come to you again. So you got to be on point. You're not going to send them 20 songs. You send them, you know, none. If none of them work, if you have nothing, you don't send anything. You don't stretch. If they're giving you 3 words, they need upbeat, female, and about, you know, happiness. You have to hit all 3 of those things. You can't say, well, this is a male, but it has all the other things. That's wasting your time. And that's super important from a pitching standpoint, to just be really on point, or else they're not going to come back to you. So what else? Frankie, how do you go about finding new music?
All the normal ways that everybody has, brought up. We're all like looking for, somebody new to discover and somebody unique to kind of add to, to each of our projects. And, I have found that most of my stuff has been through songwriters. Like that's one of my favorite places to go is through songwriters and reaching out to them, and because they have the means, they have like typically have their studios, they have, they can do something completely on the fly because they don't have that record deal and that waiver that I have to get, somebody to kind of sign off on. So those are the ones that I find that I can reach out and go, hey, I totally need a cover of this. Can you, like I just recently in the flight attendant, I needed, a version of Here You Come Again. And it needed to be creepy and weird and bizarre, and, so I just reached out to friends, people that I know. It's like, hey, do you feel like you'd want to do this? And, it's going to play at the end of one of the episodes. And it's just to harken back to, Kaylee's character, dancing on a pole and being wasted. And, it was just this weird, version. And, people just did it because they felt they had the time and it was just something fun for them to do. And, so, and even you guys did something for me, Brooke, it was like, it's, I just find that songwriters are, they're always my go-to people. I love going to songwriters and, because they play, they sing, they have the studios, they've got all this, they have the means to do it.
And I can attest to that because we've had you, a lot of our events and our camps and stuff like that. And I loved your relationship with our songwriters. You don't need us in the middle, it's like,
Yeah.
you texted so-and-so, that's great. We just, that's great. We introduced you and you go right to the source and you don't need middle, screwing with you.
I know who to go to, when I need to license it, right?
Yeah, exactly. We'll be here when you need to pay.
Exactly.
So, that brings us to a point, internally, at Concord, and I'm sure Diana knows this, there's people on, the A&R side or songwriters and managers that reach out to us and say, hey, our album's coming out in September. We really need a sync that will help launch this album. And, for us, it's like, all right, well, let me hear the music. Let me sort of figure out what makes sense and where we can pitch this and brainstorm with our team and realize that this is sort of an important album for our company. But we're not going to send stuff out to you guys that maybe is not going to work for any projects that you're working on. And so, it puts us in sort of a hard place with our clients where it's like, this song's not really working for anything. And you just recently had a conversation with a manager that, we didn't get any syncs on their album and it's really a hard album to sync. It's sort of heavy rock, metal, and it's just, there aren't that many opportunities for this sort of thing. And so I just want to put it out there that like, sync is sort of its own animal, it's not, because the song is a priority for the company, that we're going to end up getting a sync for it. Diana, does that happen to you a lot where you get a lot of pressure to pitch something?
Just about every day, all day.
Exactly.
It is so interesting because I mentioned at the beginning, we're incredibly fortunate to be in this position, and it is always a dance of doing right by our artists and also doing right by you guys, right, the supervisors. And so it is this dance. I think the number one thing is communication and expectation, right? Clarifying what the expectations are. I will, if I can give two examples. So one, for example, during the summer, there was a particular single that we had to work, and it was, you know, in its own right, it was a beautiful song and very specific to what the song was, but it was, you know, it was an ask from the top down to do everything that we could. And so I'm literally, from like friends to literally cold emailing folks. And, you know, that's always so interesting to do. And then sometimes you have like this indie band, this other one, maybe you know them, Sophie, Babe Heaven. Amazing band out of the UK. We already know they have a lot of like love from like tastemaking, you know, websites and magazines. And yeah, we're gonna do what we can to send them to all the right people. But I think you touched upon something, is we need to know the musical vocabulary of our supervisor shows in order to send, because, you know, we understand that you all are busy, but definitely a dance. And yeah, God help us. Yeah.
Yeah. I always sort of tell our clients when we first sign them, you know, you want syncs, watch TV. I say, if you go and sit on your couch and watch, say, you know, NBC, ABC, a network, from 8 p.m. to 11 p.m., you will get to know what's used in TV that night, what's used in trailers, what's used in promos, what's used in ads, and get a vibe for what people are using, what's trending, what sort of things work for sync. And don't fast forward the commercials, obviously, just watch for 3 hours. You will get the best education you can in terms of what's being used and what's needed out there. You know, and don't come to me and say like, this song needs a sync, and, you know, and it's just not gonna work. And we try to give our feedback as much as possible and help people understand what works, but it's tough sometimes. Sophie, were you gonna say something?
Yeah, I was just going to jump in because mostly to agree with what you're both saying, but I used to work in publishing at Chrysalis for many years, which is now BMG, and then a small stint at Spirit Music Group. So I understand the pressures from your side as well as management and publishers and that sort of thing. However, yeah, it's there's no point in ever putting pressure on sync, because it just generally doesn't fit like that, and more often than not, anything that feels forced, you can tell, and people will back away from. I get an awful lot of emails saying, this is a perfect car song, like listen to the lyrics, and immediately I'm kind of put off. I'm like, you know, I'll tell you if it's right for a car song, because, or you know, or probably not, because you think so, that, you know, if you see what I mean. So I generally just sort of encourage people just to keep, you know, send it through, but don't expect to sync at any particular time for it. It's useful to know it's there. It could be a fresh album now, but in 20 years time, it might get the best sync it's ever had. It's just, you know, it just needs to be on people's radars, but not forced or pushed on people.
Totally. I mean, I'll get requests for things that I pitched 3 years ago, 4 years ago, and I'm like, oh wow, you still have that? That's great, you know. So you never know. Or we have a song written for an ad. We pitch it, it doesn't happen. It gets, you know, picked up a year from now for something else. So those sort of things are always really fun to have happen, and it's never the timing that you unfortunately want, or you can't force it. Correct. I want to bring a topic of career paths. A lot of people watching today perhaps want to get into publishing, want to get into music supervision. Is there any advice, and, you know, how did you get into this, and sort of what can you tell people about that if they want to get into this career? Let's start with Willa.
Well, I can only speak for myself, but I think my path to music supervision was a bit different than most. Likely, I started working in independent film for Sundance Institute and Sundance Film Festival, which had a film music program, which is where I became kind of obsessed with film music. They have workshops there where they workshop composers, music supervisors, music editors, directors, and it's kind of this magic factory. I became obsessed with it, and from there, I had a composer friend, and I told them, you know, I'm really interested in music supervision. How can I pursue this? Do I need to go back to school? And he just suggested I, you know, hit the phones, hit the emails, reach out, and just start working for someone, start shadowing someone, which is how I found my way to Lionsgate in the film music department, which is where I cut my teeth. I've been independent now since 2012.
Very cool. Thank you. What about you, Sophie?
I had an possibly unusual entry into supervision as well. I kind of fell into it by fluke, I'll have to be honest. I was fresh out of university. I'd done film studies and was sort of knocking on doors looking for some experience there. And it was a friend of mine who was in a band, a successful band in the UK, who I used to babysit his kids, and he came back one night and said that a music supervisor was looking for an assistant. And I said, a what? And he literally had to say, you know, the job entails choosing music for adverts and films and that sort of thing. And I said, that sounds like the best job in the world. I literally didn't know it existed. So I got a very lucky, fortunate foot in the door. It was a struggle because the fee was very, very, very low, because she was working at an agency, and they allowed her to get an assistant, but only based on the fact that they would only give her a certain amount of money. So I'm not saying it was all lucky. I had to work very hard, very little money, and work a few jobs in order to pay rent and things. But anyway, the woman that was in-house at an ad agency running the music department, and she just mentored me. She said, in return for not giving you a full salary, I'm going to teach you everything. So I learned about music supervision, licensing, negotiation, all of those sort of things while I was, you know, new assistant on the job. Tragically, she fell sick, so I actually ended up running her company after a year of this job. So I learned very quickly. In those 3-4 years after that, I was thrown in at the deep end, I should say. And so, quite an interesting story. However, learn on the job. It's useful for people to know, because I didn't have any, you know, university experience in licensing or anything like that. When I was on my own and she was sick, I called people, I asked people in the industry, and I was like, help, what does this mean? I did a few online courses, that sort of thing. And I just built a career out of that. And that was 16 years ago. And now, you know, for the last 9 years, I've been running my own company. So there's ways and means, but I would definitely say if anyone who wants to get into the supervision world, definitely try and just get a foot in, try and get any experience you can. It's really one of those kind of who you know, not what you know industries, I think. And if you're passionate and determined, then you should get a chance and you should be able to rise up. But I would say experience in any sort of sync department, like labels, publishers, all have dedicated sync departments now. So you don't have to just find a supervisor or a sync company. But yeah, try and get any experience you can, get to know people in that world, in that scene, and just build your way organically from there, I'd say. Oh, you're on mute.
Oh, when I meet people like out at a party that are not in the music industry and I tell them what I do, they're like, that's a job?
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, watch TV. They pay for that. They have to pay you when they use your music, and, you know, it's fun. It's pretty great. Frankie, what about you?
I started my company in 2000, and, you know, I was working for a record company in New York when I got a call and said, hey, do you want to move to Los Angeles? And I said, sure, what would I be doing? And the lovely lady, Miss Dawn Solaire, said, whatever you want. And I said, sounds like a great job, I'll do it. And I moved to Los Angeles, and I started working for Polygram Films, and I got to learn from Dawn Solaire how to do the job. So I kind of always say I tripped and fell into this job, and I've been doing it ever since. And I would suggest to anyone that wants to do this job, learn from somebody who knows how to do the job. It's really the only way to learn it. You can take a class at a school to learn about what a master is and what a sync is, and how to look songs up, things like that. But really, the nuts and bolts of really learning, what an on camera is and how to manage doing a musical. What a composer does, what a music editor does, is really kind of like what the full encompassing aspect of what a music supervisor does is by, it's on the job training. And so if that's what you want to do, I would suggest getting close to a music supervisor and either interning, becoming an assistant to a music supervisor is the way to go.
Love it. Diana?
Yeah, the senior year, I'm born and raised in LA, so senior year, I got really lucky. I had been doing some internships in entertainment. So my background is, I was volunteering for a lot of films, Latin films created by Latin directors, whether in English or Spanish. Fast forward senior year, I got lucky with an internship. That internship eventually became the music department of Lionsgate, and the person who believed in me, who brought me over, really believed in me and gave me the time of day to really be a mentor. I would say in 15 years later, here I am. And, for me, I think it is that it's having your ears open. If you're in school still, the university career center specifically for like film, TV, music, and I think volunteer. I volunteered for different film festivals in Los Angeles, and that was just help me connect to the next person. And I think be real. I think people want to help people who show that they're passionate, that they are of their word and consistent. I think it's wonderful to have, love music and have great taste, but I think that needs to be backed with, being able to do the job and the non-sexy jobs of what this industry entails. So yeah, and like Brooke, what you said, just know what's successful on TV.
Love it. So just to give you a little brief about my career, it seems like we all sort of fell into this sync area. I started my career working at BMI, and I was working with songwriters and publishers there and putting on showcases and trying to affiliate writers to the company. And it was great. I was there for about 7 years. Then I moved into publishing. I went over to Cherry Lane Music Publishing, and I was doing more A&R there. And randomly at the time, we had an LA office, but this was back in early 2000s, and sync wasn't really as big of a thing as it is now. And we had somebody doing sync in our A&R in our LA office. I was in New York, and she had quit or left or something. And the head of A&R said, okay, now you're the new sync person. And I was like, Googling, I was like, what's sync? I had to really try to figure out exactly what it was. I remember writing down on a phone call per side and one stop and like trying to understand all of the terms. And I started flying out to LA probably every other month and meeting with supervisors. And I really got into the sync world, and then it consequently started booming, and everyone wanted to sync, and it was the new hot thing. And then I left Cherry Lane got bought by BMG. I moved over to Razor and Tie and sort of fell into Concord when Concord purchased Razor and Tie, and have been doing sync ever since. And I absolutely love it. It's the most rewarding area, I think, of the business. It's so fun working with songwriters and telling them the good news that their song is going to be in something. And obviously it has a financial reward as well. But you know, it's the promotional aspect, and it's helping them pay their rent for another month. It's things like that that really excite me and make me happy to be in this business. And it's not stressful. I think we can all attest to that it's a very stressful area of business at times. Things need to turn around quickly, and you know, you need to get answers, and you need to get songs into the right hands and all of that. But I absolutely love it, and I wouldn't change a thing, you know, at all looking back on my career, and absolutely love this area of the business. And it's very female heavy. Look at us, right? All right, so I guess that's sort of where we're at. I think we can sort of go around maybe and leave everyone with one piece of wisdom or any sort of parting words you might have to tell people. Who wants to start? Let's go to Diana, since I've been leaving you last every time.
Be prepared. This is a lifestyle business. So you have to love music and come prepared with, just a hustle and a work ethic, and know that this is a people business, whether you're dealing with artists or whether you're dealing with supervisors. We are here to facilitate and be a bridge and help with solutions.
Love it. Frankie?
Okay, if you are a songwriter, artist, stick with it, go for it, know who you're talking to. So, you know the music supervisor you're reaching out to. If they are a music supervisor that really only works on projects that are all heavy metal, don't send your music to them. Focus on who you're sending your music to and know the projects that they're working on. So do your homework and make sure you put all your metadata in all of what you're sending to them. And for those that are aspiring to be music supervisors or publishers, again, know who you're reaching out to, know the kind of music that you love, know who you're reaching out to, so that if you want to work for that person, that you are like-minded, and know the kind of work ethic that the person that you're reaching out to has, so that two like-minded people will be thinking alike.
I love it. I just want to throw in one quick story. Remember that show True Blood? It was supervised by Gary Calamar. And I remember hearing him speak on a panel once, and he said that every day he gets emails with attachments and songs and this and that, with, you know, songs about vampires, songs about blood, songs about killing. He said, if you actually watch the show, you will see that not once have I ever used a song that had blood in it, that had vampires in it, that had, people just think like, oh, True Blood, they must use songs like that. Actually watch the show and see what they use. That would be helpful. You know, and there's a website that I want to shout out to everyone that we use all the time to track songs used in shows. It's called TuneFind, TUNEFIND.com. You can go on that website and really look up any single show, and it'll show you the episode, what songs were used in there. Sometimes it'll show the music supervisor. And that's really helpful to get an idea of, you know, what songs are used in what shows. And then for ads, we use iSpot. What else do we use? I sometimes just watch the shows. I mean, I go on to abc.com and watch shows and have it in the background, and, you know, watching trailers and Netflix and everything. Just, you got to absorb as much as you can, and do your research. Anyway, okay, my rant is over. All right, Willa, any parting words?
Sure. Yes, I'd say if you're a musician or songwriter, what I'm really interested in is not sounding like someone else, but honing in on what sets you aside from everyone, and just like letting that shine, because that's going to make me notice you or be interested in your music, whether it's your vocal performance or your lyrics or an interesting phrasing. That's what's going to get me excited. Also, if you can self-record and engineer, that is a huge bonus. And if you can demo well, even better. And if you're looking to be on the music business industry side, whether it's label or publisher or music supervisor or manager or agent, I say, kind of taken from Shep Gordon, who I worked on a documentary on years ago, who was an epic music manager, to practice always compassionate business, be humble, be kind. It costs nothing and it goes a long way.
All about relationships. I mean, that is 100% what it's about. Of course, Frankie can come to any company when she needs some songs, but she's very tight with Courtney on our team, and she reaches out to Courtney and they get along and they really love working with each other, and that's why we've been so successful with our relationship with you. And so that's huge. Diana, did you give parting word yet?
I did.
Oh, did we do everyone?
I think Sophie.
Oh, okay. Sophie, sorry.
It's okay. Yeah, I mean, it's sort of similar to what Frankie and Willa have been saying, but for artists, just be true to yourself. Don't ever write for sync. It comes across. And carrying on from what we were talking about earlier, you never want to force it. So just write authentically. It comes across. It will fit somewhere. And again, carrying on from Frankie's advice, do your research, because it's not going to work everywhere. Thrash metal is not going to be used a lot in advertising, but it will in a film world about thrash metal, for example. So yeah, just try and target people cleverly and thoughtfully, and also it will do you a lot of favors. It does us a lot of favors, because like Brooke was saying earlier, if you're going to pitch badly, then it doesn't work for anyone. So I mean, I think sync is in a really exciting place at the moment, more so than ever in a way. Live shows have gone, sadly. Festivals, concerts, all of that is going to be a long time away before that's back up and running in the sense that it was. So sync is at the forefront again. There's more, more people are watching and streaming than ever before. So there's more opportunity. So there will be more places where it fits naturally and organically, rather than just trying to put pressure on getting it in a certain place. Also think about other industries. The gaming world is huge for sync. I don't personally do much, so I can't give you any words of wisdom so much, but that you think about the obvious ones like TV and film, but there are online, mobile, digital, all of these sort of things are worth doing some research into as well. Yeah, I think it's an exciting time. So yeah, just do the research. And the last sync, or not the last one, but a very recent sync I did was for Amazon, the Christmas spot, and the track we used was "The Show Must Go On" by Queen, which is obviously just a lovely, nice sentiment for this time of year and with everything that's going on. But it's true, the show must go on.
I loved that spot. I actually had seen it before I realized it was yours, so that was exciting to look at your website and see that was your spot. It was beautiful. I guess my last thing is, if you're a songwriter and you're looking for help with sync, there are definitely companies out there that are working to pitch your songs to third-party licensing companies, and they're usually go-tos along with publishers and record labels for having independent artists and pitching, and do your research in terms of their reputations, because there are a lot of people out there that really, they might charge you, which is ridiculous, things like that. They should just get a commission, but hopefully they have a good reputation. So do your research. And then I'm just going to leave you with a quote from another music supervisor who's not on this panel, but I love this quote Her name's Casey Truman. She does Grey's Anatomy and a ton of other things. But this sort of quote I've used a lot in my career because it really drives home our feelings about sync. She said, if your song gets chosen and it's airing in an episode of something or in a film or an ad, you should throw yourself a party because you just won the lottery. Which is so true because it's really hard to get a sync. You know, it's not something that comes easily, and you know, a lot of things have to be lined up in order for you to land that sync. You know, we get a lot of sort of requests coming in and they don't end up airing for whatever reason. So if you're actually on the air, throw yourself a party, you know, post about it, get your friends, you know, to watch and tweet and do all that, because it really is a good thing and a great thing to happen, which is why you're probably all watching this, because you're like, how do I get a sync? So here we are. Anyway, it was great speaking to all you ladies, and appreciate your time today. And Folk Alliance is a great organization, and we're happy to be involved. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
What a fantastic panel. Thank you to Brooke, Diana, Frankie, Sophie, and Willa. This session will continue to be available as a recording on the Folk Unlocked platform all week. So please take a moment to provide feedback about today's conversation by posting some comments in the chat. And finally, Folk Unlocked has been made available at a pay-what-you-can price point, thanks to the generosity of donors. And if you'd like to support our work, donations can be made at folk.org/donate. Stay safe, connected, you folk community. We hope to see you soon.